I don't know what made me do it, but I decided to go live this morning. I've had so many different things that I've been thinking about. I a lot of times have to just get out of my own head, um, because it usually, I don't know if it makes things worse or not, but I find that I've been having to write things down, kind of do a checklist and cross things off the list as I get them accomplished. But I just wanted to jump on this morning for a little bit and talk about some of those things that I've been thinking about. So, if you don't know me, my name's Frank. I'm a general contractor here in California on the Central Coast near Santa Cruz. And my wife and I are also long distance real estate investors. We've been at it for I think this is our fourth year now since we bought our first property, but we had tried it years ago, many years ago, back in 2007, before the issues came about back then. We ended up losing those properties, going through bankruptcy, and realizing that real estate was a thing that could help us because I don't really have like retirement savings or anything, or I didn't back then when we got started again. So I just woke up one day and realized that I didn't have anything saved for retirement, and I was approaching that age. At the time, I was 57, and I started doing some research. Like a lot of our friends in the real estate investing community, we're part of the one rental at a time community, and there's a lot of great people in there that have helped us on our second attempt at investing in real estate. So I think I mentioned we invest at a distance. We have properties in a couple of different states in the Midwest. We're in Missouri and Indiana, Wisconsin. But some of the things we've been going through recently have made me think, or made me wonder, even though we're coming into it more educated this time, if we're going to do better this time. And I think it's proven itself that this time around is going to be better because we still have the properties. We bought our first one in 2021. It was the triplex for us in St. Joseph, Missouri. One of the things that comes up often in the meetings that we have get-togethers every week, accountability calls, some people call it, but we haven't gone to see any of our properties in person. And I know a lot of other people in the group that have not. And a lot of people think that's crazy. But I think in the present day, there are a lot more ways that you can verify that you actually are buying a property, buying a home on a piece of land, with your real estate agent being the first line of defense, I guess. Then there's home inspectors, because obviously you're going to get a home inspection when you're buying something. There's property managers that we rely on heavily, but a lot of people still think we're nuts for doing it. Like I said, we've been at it for 4 years now, this second time around. But going back to what I was saying earlier, I was panicking. I didn't have any retirement savings. I tried looking into starting a retirement account of different sorts. And at the time, I guess when I first really got introduced to YouTube, Rose Hahn was one of the big ones that I used to watch. Graham Stephan was even, I think, bigger back then. He was out a lot more back then, but they were talking about how to invest for retirement. But I was already getting close to retirement age, so I didn't really think that was going to help me quick enough. So we found bigger pockets. We found this great community of one rental at a time, and there are several hundred people in the community doing all kinds of different types of investing. And so we again, we started re-educating ourselves, trying to do it right the second time. But even though we are coming into it much more educated, there have still been issues, right? There have been mistakes and there have been lessons. We were just talking last night about that, and our main mentor, Michael Zuber, warns us not to buy cheap. He says you can go broke buying cheap. And I guess the properties that we purchased, I wouldn't call them cheap in the sense that he means, but they're less expensive properties, right? They're out of state. The price to rent ratios are much better there. You can get cash flow in markets. Some people, well, I think most people would love to invest for cash flow and appreciation, but that's not always, those don't always come together, you know. And again, getting back to where my wife and I are in our lives, in our journey, we're older, so we need the cash flow to live on more than appreciation, because we don't have as many years as a lot of people in the group to for appreciation to help. So that was one thought. The other thing that, again, Michael Zuber said the other day is that nobody's coming to save you, right? Speaking to us, the group, nobody's coming to save you. You have to do what you need to do to take care of your family. And I was thinking about that, but I know they're not specifically coming to save us, but I think Zuber and Dion and the lumberjack landlord, Millennial Mike, I think in a sense they are coming to save us, because, and I guess we obviously we have to put in the work, right? But I think they're coming to save us. They're giving us the tools we need to succeed. But if we're not going to work and try to help ourselves, then it doesn't matter. So I'm grateful to them for all of the education we've gained, you know, to this point, and all the financial literacy, the education that we've gotten that way has been huge, because we've learned so much, and it hasn't just really helped us in real estate, but it's helped us in our lives in general, because we've learned so many different things on maybe it's how to protect money that you have, how to invest more wisely, and things like that. So it's not just real estate related. I think our lives are better all around because of everything that we've been learning. We've made a lot of great friends. One of my friends this morning made a comment that, you know, because on one of the recent interviews I did with the financial firefighter, we talked about how we have this big community of people that we've met on Zooms or in accountability calls and things like that. And it seems odd that you can trust someone that you haven't met in person. And we've had kind of a couple of examples recently where, you know, we're thinking of moving up to Washington State. We've met a lot of great friends up there. Actually, we got to meet in person. And, you know, they're always like, you know, if you come up to Washington, we've got a place here you can stay. And we've offered the same for people coming to our neck of the woods. But you don't, I wouldn't call them strangers, but you wouldn't do that with a stranger, right? Even, I don't know, somebody around our local area that we meet in person for a few different occasions, you wouldn't typically offer your home to them, or trust them that way. But so many of these people in the community are we already trust like that. So you start to kind of grow a family outside of your your immediate circle, like your immediate family and friends and things like that. And a lot of times, these people that we meet from a distance are, well, I was just going to say, sometimes they're nicer than your actual family. So I don't think that speaks for everybody, but some of us would rather meet up with you guys out there than some of our immediate circle. Um, and the friend that I just mentioned talking about how you guys out there, that it's a new reality, right? Because it's the way things are today with technology and all that, and we just feel like, because a lot of times we do talk every day to certain people and things like that, but you you get a sense of who people really are and how genuine they are and how much they just want to help. And that's everybody in this group. I haven't met anybody in the group that isn't like that. And that's just been amazing. I think we're lucky to have fallen in the group. Anyway, and then getting back to what I was saying earlier about, not having a retirement savings and things like that, I was really panicking in the beginning. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so we wanted to give real estate another shot. Um, you hear a lot of crazy stuff once you get started. I never really knew that a lot of people didn't like landlords per se, but that becomes more and more evident. Um, but I don't think, as far as we're concerned, and a lot of people in the group are the same, they're trying to make a business out of providing nice, clean, comfortable living for people out there. And it's a business, right? You need to make money at it, or you can't really just do all that for free. And some people just see it as being evil, being I guess it's capitalism in their minds, but that's not the way we look at it. I would like to fix up all of our properties nice enough and get them to the point where I would be comfortable living in them myself. Um, we have taken over some properties from previous landlords that didn't really see it the same way. They just wanted that cash flow coming in. They didn't repair things as needed and things like that. Um, but we've had some remodeling done recently on a few of our properties, and I'm really happy with the way they came out. Um, and we are buying, I would say we're buying in C class neighborhoods, maybe a little bit lower C than C plus, but getting back to what Zuber was saying about going broke, buying cheap, I think what he meant was like not to buy in D class areas, because you can get better cash flow in those areas, but tenant turnover and I guess property destruction, they're not going to take, those kinds of tenants aren't going to take care of your properties very well. And the further you go towards class A, the better tenant you will get, but you won't be cash flowing in a B plus or A neighborhood right away. And again, we don't have too much time to let appreciation take effect. There are a lot of other benefits, like um, there will usually be slight appreciation, which is a great thing. Don't count on it. But as long as your property's cash flowing, you'll be fine. There are tax benefits to owning rentals. There's principal pay down by the tenants each month. And some of us were talking the other day, and I think quite a few people do it, where they'll add a few dollars to each monthly payment to help pay down the principal, which in my mind is I think it's a good idea because, a few years down the road, you'll be a little bit further along as far as the equity that you have in the property, and it might give you more chances to like refinance. If rates ever do come back down again, you can refinance and create even more cash flow for yourself. One thing that we weren't really good at in the beginning was stabilizing the properties that we were buying, and that came back around to bite us a few years into the journey, probably on last year on year 3. But we were talking last night about the fact that when you buy, say you buy 1 or 2 properties and you get them stabilized, meaning you get tenants in place and the rents are coming in on time each month. If you're going to use a property manager, you get to learn their systems and make sure that they're maybe not overcharging you for some of the things that they do. And once you get those stabilized, then buy another one. But in the beginning, for us, I felt like we needed to pick up as many properties as possible as soon as possible because we needed them to start working for us to help us in retirement. And that wasn't probably the best way to do it. Our first and second years were decent, but our third year was really bad because when a couple of the tenants moved out, and we realized, because we had purchased those properties with tenants in place, so there was a lot of things we didn't see during the inspection and stuff because people were living in the home and they couldn't get to every area. But we ended up putting a lot of money out for repairs last year. And again, last night we were talking about that because typically what you hope will happen is you buy a property, you get it stabilized, and you can start saving because you'll be setting aside money for reserves each month from the rent. And when that builds up, you'll have money to make repairs, whether it's a roof or a furnace or water heater or whatever it might be. But since our properties are so new and those issues came up so quickly, I was kind of thinking that it worked in reverse for us. We had to put a lot of our money into the properties to make them nice again to re-rent. And hopefully that'll prove to be a positive thing, that later on we won't have to spend so much money all at once. But we put a lot of money into the properties. We had a few vacancies. We went through a couple of evictions. So it's like everything that could go wrong went wrong last year. So now that we've got those things fixed up, they're doing much better. We still have a few vacant units, but those will be coming up on the market for rent within the next week or 2. And once we get them all filled, then I think things will be feeling much better than they have been over the last year. Yeah. And now we probably aren't going to be able to afford to buy anything new for another year. Some people in our group were talking about doing a deal this year, but if they use up the money to buy the deal, then they won't be able to buy for a while. I think that they need to be careful with that. They need to do their deal, see it through all the way, then refinance or whatever they're going to do to pull their money back out and then buy more. I think that's a better way to do that than getting some crazy kind of financing to get you through the rehab and paying more, another payment on top of whatever mortgage is on the property. That's going to take a big chunk of your cash flow right away. So there's so many different aspects to this game. There's so many types of investing. We finally decided to just do long-term buy and hold, meaning pick up a property with conventional financing, 30-year fixed debt. Because in the beginning, listening to Bigger Pockets, there were so many people out there doing great things in different ways, like short-term rentals, flipping and wholesaling. Those were things that did well back when I was getting started, and I was all over the place. And, some of our mentors would just tell us, just pick one and get good at it, and then you can move on to something different if you want to after you get a few properties under your belt. And that made a lot of sense. So when I finally did concentrate on one type of investing, things went a lot smoother, and I made more progress. I did go a little bit too fast. I think we purchased too many too quickly without letting things stabilize. And some people might think, you know, like I was saying a minute ago, we put a lot of money into the properties last year. Some people might think, well, there goes your, cash flow for however long years. But I think for me, that money is better in a property, even if I ended up paying a little bit too much for it after we had to add on those repairs, right? Because when you analyze your deal in the beginning, you're analyzing with certain numbers like the current interest rate, how much you're putting down, how much the rent is, what you're setting aside for maintenance, vacancy, and capex, and then you come out with a number, right? So if you buy $100,000 property and you're all in the purchase for 30,000, and your numbers work, but then the next year you find out, oh, the roof and the furnace were not that great. Now I need to put a roof and a furnace, so you spend another 10,000. So is that, I'll call it a dumb move. Is it a dumb move? You didn't really know those things were going to fail within the first year, but now you have to add that $10,000, basically add it on to the 30,000 that you already spent on the property. So that's going to skew your numbers quite a bit. And people on the outside will say that was a dumb move. You're wasting money. You're throwing good money after bad. But that's all we know at the time, right? And hopefully with each property, you're going to investigate deeper, and you're not just going to jump on the next deal that comes your way. And after a while, you realize that there are plenty of deals to be had, no matter what the rates are, no matter what the market's doing, things like that. And those are things that we're learning. I think Zuber's helping us stay calm with all the turmoil that's going on in the world right now. Not to panic, and say not to sell your stock when it's as low as it is today. It just dropped, all of a sudden, but it will typically recover, and it's proven itself that it will recover after some time, but you need to be patient. You'll only lose if you sell it today while it's low. And those are crazy things I never thought I'd be interested in or being able to talk about, but we've learned a lot. One of the things that I kind of kick around too is when we started our channel, it was to help other people that might want to be, or that were interested in investing in real estate but didn't know how to get started. That's where most of the challenges are. Once you get started, and you'll start learning, and there's so many people in the group willing to help with any issues that come up for you. But in our experience, like I was just saying, we bought properties thinking one thing. We ended up having to spend more money to keep them going. And sometimes I wonder, why would anyone want to take any advice from me? And then when I rethought about that, it's not really advice. I wouldn't be giving someone advice, but I would be sharing what we've been through. And I think that that's more helpful than advice in a lot of cases. Um, and sometimes we joke because, we've been through a lot. Some of our close friends in the group have also been through a lot, either with vacancies or like we did have to put money in unexpectedly. Um, and we're trying to help people get started, but when people hear what we've been going through, it might make them run the other direction. So I hope that's not what they take away from what we're sharing. I hope they see that we have been through challenges and that we are continuing. And, in my life, I've always, I don't know, I guess when we've been able to save, say a small lump sum of money, 20, 30, $40,000, if I didn't put it into a property, that money just kind of vanishes, right? Things come up. I've had needed engines in my work vans, or tires for these things are, $1,200. So a lot of those little things will happen, and then all of a sudden that 20 or $40,000 is just gone. So I've had to go ahead and stick it into a property and kind of protect it. Even if we've put that extra money in for unexpected repairs, I think we're still better off in the long run. And after some time, the properties will turn around, and we will be generating enough cash flow to help us in retirement. We can't, I say it all the time, my wife and I can't retire early because we're already at that age, but we'll be able to retire at all, which is a good thing. So I don't know if any of this stuff is making sense to you guys, but I think it helped clear my head a little bit. Probably made yours a little more foggy. I can't really see all the comments right now, but I will be checking them out when we're finished. But thanks for watching, and I think if you guys subscribed, or if you have subscribed to the channel, if not, please do. There's a lot of other information. We started our channel talking about the properties as we purchased them and the experiences that we had with each property, things we didn't know. For example, the very first one we bought we purchased it as a triplex, but it was originally a big single family home, and it was divided into 3 different apartments. And there were issues because, for example, the furnace, there was only one furnace, and all the units, the big unit in the bottom controlled the heat for all the units. So the people upstairs couldn't adjust their temperature and things like that. And so we had a few turnovers for that reason. So, and if I had gone to see it, I probably would have realized that and maybe not bought it, or maybe negotiated a better price to be able to put mini splits in. That we put in mini splits last year, so that was, a big expense. And we updated the units. It was a really nice looking older home, and it was in good shape, but it was old and it wasn't keeping up with other rentals in the area. So we remodeled a couple of the units and updated them, and they rented fairly quickly after that. So those are things that you might want to fly out and take a peek at before you sign on the dotted line. But anyway, getting back to the channel, so I talk about all the properties that we purchased. We picked up a couple more last year that we'll be adding to that library, but all the different experiences, tenant experiences, eviction experiences, which is new, and it's different in different states. So that's something you'll have to learn wherever you decide to start investing. But yeah, I hope you subscribe, and we'll look forward to your comments. I'll check them out now. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.